Now on to Sagittarius. Boy, this was complex. So interesting as a set of circumstances that you have to navigate. Because imagine there is a partition that you're looking at the end of. It goes down away from you. And you have to decide which side of this partition is more beneficial to your interests. And the problem is that if you look this side, there's a kind of dark cloud bringing problems and whatever. If you look this side, there's a continuation of that dark cloud bringing problems and whatever. That doesn't seem like fun, right? And I stood staring at this partition thinking, why is there even a choice? Neither side seems particularly welcoming. But this is where you are required to adopt a new perspective, to look at life in a different way. Look at your issues or the future or your prospects or whatever this represents in an entirely different way, because this partition, when I looked up, wasn't a partition. There was, I don't know how to describe this, but if there was, say, a very, very big roll of paper and somebody had unrolled it and it had gone down a crevice in the ground. Does that make any sense at all? But basically there was a hole in the ceiling and this paper had come down to form a partition. But it was an artificial separation. You were trying to make decisions about which way to go, A or B, neither of which seemed terribly attractive, when in actual fact, your answer, the solution to all your problems, lay up there. All you had to do was climb I don't know how you did this actually, by the way, but it did take a change of perspective. And when you did, you climbed up the paper, the partition, and then you were sitting in a whole different area. Things instantly got better because now the whole view was white and bright and sunny and lovely. And that's what you kind of want. And I think initially you were a little dazed when you'd made this change, this switch, whatever it represents. It was like, oh, really? Now what am I going to do? Because this is all new to me. This may be 2024 for all I know, but it certainly opened up a vista of possibilities that down below, with your old perspective, your old set of choices had not seemed terribly viable. So now you walked around the hole and moved on. Things were developing. New horizons were beckoning. But then there was, I don't know what it was, like a crevasse or something that you had to leap over. Easy peasy, not a big crevasse, just a little crevasse. However, this, I don't even know how to describe this actually, but it was like a big three-sided cube, like a little room that lowered itself down, and it's almost like a voice said, hey, come on in here. It's fun in here. You can do lots of things in here. Opportunity, a new way, a chance to do something that is not unappealing, maybe. This could be at the end of the year or in the new year. And you go, yeah, that's interesting. But the problem is with it that it was finite. It was limited. You could only move around within the small space that was inside the three-sided cube. Whereas if you leapt over the crevasse and moved forward, new possibilities were before you. Your horizon was larger than if you hid away in this little box thing, which might seem appealing at the time. It's like, oh, after all the fuss, that is something I would like. Thank you very much. And yet it confined you. It kept you in a position that didn't allow for expansion or ambition or growth or whatever. It could be relationships, it could be work, it could be anything. But whatever that represented in your life, Sagittarius, then there was a moment when you thought, well, this probably was a little too safe for me. I'd like to do something else. And then you make the adjustment. On the other hand, you can see it for what it is and then go, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to be confined. I want to run free like a stallion and jump over the crevasse and away. And now Capricorn. This was interesting too in terms of what happened when I went into Capricorn's energy. There's Capricorn right there. And as I stood there, a pathway, like a little road, came out of nowhere. It just suddenly, rather like a cartoon, it just came out of nowhere and just landed at my feet. Like, there you go. This is the way to go. I don't know if you felt that that was the way to go. It could be that you go, yeah, but that's going over there and I don't want to do that. I've done that. It's a bit of a rut. Or, yeah, it's playing too safe. Or, I don't know where that leads, so I don't know if I want to do it. It was there, but you hesitated. It was like, yeah, but I got that option. But what happens if I continue walking? There's options over there too. So I took you both ways just to see what happened. If you continued walking, you walked under the path, which cast you in shadow. I think you had a little bit of regret at that point, like, oh, I could have done that, couldn't I? I wonder if it's too late to go back and change my mind. It's like, yeah, I suppose. Or there was some negative emotion attached to this. I felt it was regret, but I suppose it could be other things like shame or self-doubt or frustration or whatever. I don't know. But you went under the path, reflected on it, and then continued going. And ahead, there were two clouds, a dark one and a lighter one, with a pathway between them. Neither needed to make a difference to you, actually. You could walk straight through them, aware that they're there, aware that they're going on in the world or other people's lives, but without necessarily becoming embroiled yourself. There was a path. But it did feel like it would be hard not to look that way or that way, not to worry about that or fear that. It was just so close to you that you might get sucked into the energy of it, even though you didn't really want to. This could be December, or it could be the beginning of the new year, but there was that feeling of, oh no, I will just focus on the path I'm on and ignore this, but oh, what's going on over there? There's a kind of feeling of I could ignore it, but it's so hard. I took you back and I went up the path with you. And this was interesting because what this path was there for was to steer you around that situation entirely. It was either a familiar surrounding, circumstances, or it was just a familiar perspective of stepping back and not getting embroiled. And no, let that carry on. I am not going to waste my energy or give away my power to that, to either cloud. I'm not even taking the risk of walking through. I'm going to go around here and I will avoid it entirely. It added a certain amount of distance to the entire situation, removed you from the problem, and kept you happy and elevated, while maybe the rest of the world or the rest of the people in your environment or whatever, or your work or your home, whatever, were caught up in dramas, pressures, worries, fears, whatever it was. You had that choice. You could go with them. It's like, somebody can choose to gossip if they want to. Or you can not gossip. I'm one of those people who doesn't gossip. I don't say things about people behind their back. But many people do, and that's a choice, but it's on the path of lesser intention. And I choose not to go down that path. This is a similar choice. It struck me from the pictures that you can go through it, get embroiled despite your best intentions, or you can go, nah, I see an opportunity here to just get on with what I'm doing, enjoy myself, live a life, fulfill my own soul contracts and not worry about what other people are doing. Again, what other people are doing, how they are fulfilling their soul contracts has nothing to do with you, as I said before. Very, very interesting. Now, moving on to Aquarius. This is not dissimilar, actually, to Capricorn's pictures. And so it obviously shares a similar energy for the next 2 months. Because when I went into the energy for Aquarius, you were at the edge of a cliff. That's too easy. It wasn't really a cliff, but it was like an edge anyway that was crumbling slightly, as if a certain period was ending or a certain set of circumstances were ending and you had to figure out how to move forward. And you thought there was only one way to move forward. You don't have to consider all the circumstances or surroundings or anything. Just move forward because there was a beam there to help you across a big open pit. And you thought, oh, well, there you go. I'll just take the beam. I'll just walk across. It's a little bit risky, but I'll just do that. Because that's what's at my feet. That's what I should do. But the trouble with this was that the soil, the earth supporting the beam, was crumbling. So whatever situation this represents, it's not what it seems. It's not as secure as it seems. It doesn't offer the advantages or the promises that you think it does. You can take it, and I let you take it, but what was fascinating about this beam was it stretched across the pit, but even as I watched, it was sliding down. It was crumbling at that end too. Something, it seems from the pictures, will be offered. Something will be presented, or a path will appear that you think, oh, this will be fine. I'll just do this. But if it even hints at being dodgy or uncertain or dangerous or too risky, then it probably is. And you should take note of that for the sake of your own peace of mind, security, happiness, joy, whatever it might be. The actual answer was to walk around the edge of the pit. It would take longer. The direct way seems like the best way. But actually, in this particular instance, it wasn't. And the reason it wasn't was because although the pit was like circular, like pits are, at the other end, as I watched, the crumbling, the damage, whatever this was, continued. A channel opened up that prolonged the fallout. If you were on the beam, you would end up in the channel and you'd have to deal with the fallout. It didn't be horrible. It's just some kind of fallout from some decision that wasn't a very wise one, or a set of circumstances that wasn't very stable or something. It went into the new year and you thought, wow, I missed that. If you took the long way round, the pretty way, and avoided the pit. If you ignored that and you just went across the beam for the sake of just getting it out of the way, just let's do it, then what seemed like a particular confined or defined set of circumstances actually extended itself. And it went into the new year, into January, and maybe even February, and oh, wow, I could have done without that. As I say, not necessarily bad. It doesn't have to be awful, this thing. It just had a sense of there is probably a better way, but that way will require circumspection and prudence and not being impetuous and rushing in simply to get the thing done. It felt like that. So you'd be fine. But it did seem from the pictures as though going around the pit was more advantageous in the long run than going across the beam, because you could at least see where it was all crumbling and feel relieved that you made the right choice. That's what it felt like. Pisces. There's Pisces right there. And when I went into that energy, you were walking through a metro station, like the passageway that led to a platform. You were going somewhere. You had something to do. You knew where you wanted to end up. It was just a matter of finding the connecting tunnels, getting the right train, and going. You had your ticket. It was all good. Trouble is that as you moved along the passageway, the train you'd hoped to catch was leaving. It was already speeding into the tunnel and away. You'd missed it. And I think there was a sense that you had waited too long, or you dilly-dallied talking to people and should have got down here faster or something. You'd missed the boat or the train in this particular instance. That's what it felt like. You were on an empty platform. Everybody else had got on the train, but you missed it. Now, as you stood there on the platform, metaphorically, there was an explosion far off that shook the platform. Obviously not a real explosion. We're not talking real world things. This is metaphor. But there was an explosion. And it happened elsewhere, perhaps somewhere you might have been had you caught the train. So everybody else, in their rush to get somewhere, went on the train, and they were affected by circumstances that changed, or something that went belly up, or some issue that they would have missed had they dallied and dawdled like you did. I mean, again, not a real explosion, just a set of circumstances that you missed. And when your train came, I looked down the platform, there was a train at the next station, and gradually it came along and you caught that, and you missed whatever this thing was, this change, this upset, this, I don't even know what it was. It's just an explosion, some change, some switch in circumstances, or something going belly up, or something that other people had to go through, but not you, because you, fortuitously, were divinely led. And you, by sheer good luck, missed it. And you rode comfortably on a train all of your own. And you arrived at your destination absolutely fine. So again, a metaphorical explosion, just to be clear. But this was a situation where you felt you'd missed the opportunity, or you'd arrived too late, or things had not gone the way you'd hoped, or something. It's like, oh, damn. And it all turned out fine in the end. You were exactly where you needed to be. Life was turning out exactly as it was supposed to be. And infinite intelligence had your back the whole time. Trust it. Yield to it. Surrender to it. And go at your own pace. Do what you feel in your gut is right. And you won't go far wrong. Now, Aries, this was also fairly interesting as a set of pictures, because you were climbing up a hill. And I think that the division in this hill meant the division between November and December. It was like, I got to get up this hill. And you got to December, it's like, oh no, I got to go up this hill now as well to get to the end of the year. It felt like that kind of thing. Maybe it happens sooner. But it did feel as though it was like, I got all this stuff to do, all this stuff to sort out. There are things happening that I can't avoid. I just gotta work through them. And then you get to December when you think it's all over and, oh, I got to work through this as well. But it was all a matter of working through it, closing down whatever had been this year's issues and moving on to next year's. There was a definite difference between 23 and 24. In fact, when you reach the top of that second tier, you found that 23 was covered in cellophane or something, and it was like a plastic layer that contained 23 and provided a barrier to 24, and you had to burst through it. Sorted that out, done that, left that behind me, no more of that. Tidy up, clear it away, move on. Grab 24 with both hands, pierce through the cellophane layer, burst out, and approach 2024 with a new set of expectations. There was a path up there, bright and sunny, and it offered a way forward. But it didn't continue. This was the most interesting part of this. It didn't continue forward. There was a limit to it. There was a point at which you had to let go. Just step down. Abandon that way of looking at things. Or if it was something like a New Year's resolution, dump it. It's not working. Sometimes we set intentions and they're really not to our advantage. It was just a bright idea that didn't pan out. So it felt like that. There was an end there. And the option, in fact, possibly the only option at that point, having abandoned that path, was to climb down, walk around, and go to the right. There was a valley which was smooth and lovely and gentle and suggested that that was the right way to go. However, that might mean falling back on old ways. It goes to the right. So it might mean falling back on old ways or resorting to the familiar or doing what's comfortable rather than what's ambitious or whatever. But at that point, you kind of thought, okay, that didn't work. That intention I set isn't going to pan out. So, I think I'm just going to relax, surrender to this, let life take me where it leads and not fight it, not resist what clearly is the inevitable here. That's what it felt like. And finally, Taurus. Are you still awake, Taurus? Did I lose you? There are elements to these pictures that I don't fully understand, but maybe they become clear when you apply them to your own circumstances. Because when I went into the energy, there is Taurus. You were in a narrow channel looking at a set of curtains, set of drapes that were blocking off the rest of the channel you were in. As I watched, you went over and you pinned the drapes up to the sides and you stood and you looked at the rest of the channel, where you were heading, what you had to do in the rest of the year. This was appraisal. This was taking stock of what you had to do. Where were you going? How many loose ends had to be tied up? Having made that assessment for November, December, and kind of calibrated it all to the end of the year, you closed the curtains behind you and moved on. Now, this channel you were in grew very, I wouldn't say dark. It was kind of dark, but it wasn't really the important part of it. It was just indeterminate. It didn't really offer anything that you wanted. It's almost like if you're going to make a splash in 2024, something new has to be injected into your life or your approach or your interests or your relationships, whatever it is. And the way to get to there from here was via a really complicated staircase that wound in and around itself. I honestly wasn't prepared to draw this. It was way too complicated, like an Escher painting. But it wound around itself, suggesting that between now and the end of the year, there are certain things that must be sorted out. This was like, okay, if I do this and if I do that and I make A, B, C, and D right and I coordinate those things over there and wind that up, I will get to where I need to go minus my encumbrances. It felt like progress, but with so many loose ends to be tied up and problems to solve or whatever this might be, that it didn't seem like progress. But you were heading somewhere. You were rising up. You were untangling all these knots that had been waiting around for a while and needed to be resolved. And it brought you up to a much higher, better level, presumably in December or at the beginning of 2024. You were on the side of a freeway or a highway where cars were speeding by. So I didn't have to draw them, luckily. But they were speeding by. And for some reason, you didn't have a vehicle of your own in this. You had to walk along the side of the freeway. suggesting that you kind of have to go your own way here. You have to do what's right for you. Follow the road around. I keep saying this, don't focus on what other people are doing or look at them and say, why do I not have that? Or why are they going at that speed in a car and I'm on foot and I'm walking slowly? There's something about the slowness of your pace that is instrumental in getting where you need to go. Maybe you have to consider more, chew over what you're doing. Maybe you have to be more methodical or slower paced than other people to get to your destination. This might require thought or contemplation, or even a circumspection that would be ruined if you had to rush and had to be there at a certain time and beat all these people. Let them go. This has nothing to do with you. You have your own path. You're aware that the freeway's there. You are totally conscious of what other people are doing, but you are going to plod at your own pace to get where you need to go. That was what 24 offered you in a way. It was a chance to recalibrate, reassess, resolve, untangle the knots, and then, free of all that, having cleared your head, cleared your energy, you are free to move forward at your own pace and let the world do what it wants to do. It has nothing to do with you. And that's it. That's all 12 signs. Do let me know what happens. I am very, very curious to see if these pictures come true. In the past, they have, but I'm always wanting to hear feedback about how they go because I have no idea. But anyway, I will speak to you very soon. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.